Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 44 of the Cosmic Force. And on tonight's episode, we're talking about all of our favorite characters. No, not our heroes and villains like Luke or Vader or even Aphra. We're talking about the supporting characters who have stolen the spotlight for at least a panel or two as we discuss major moments from minor characters. And let's go ahead and go around the room and say hello to everybody. Emma is actually not joining us tonight. So I will go ahead and go right over to Caleb. Caleb, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. I'm glad to be here. I think we're going to have a fun show. Despite the low-key characters, I think we're going to have some high stakes. So I think the three of us are going to really get some deep dives and pull out some characters you haven't thought about in maybe even years.
Yeah, I think we at least for us as hosts, I think we all agreed that last week's episode was a lot of fun, where it was just kind of a let's have a discussion and just kind of talk about some fun comic things instead of a particular book or anything. So we kind of think that we're going to do something similar again tonight. So hopefully it's going to be just as fun. Jacob, how are we doing tonight, sir?
Pretty well. This is like the first time, like school-wise, I feel like that's always what I talk about because that's all I have going on. School-wise, this is the first time I won't have to stay up super late after an episode to write a paper I procrastinated on in a while. So, I'm feeling pretty great, honestly. I'm just excited to somehow shoehorn my favorite comic book into another episode. So,
Now, are you
Jacob,
not staying up? Yeah, I was going to say, I think Caleb's going to ask the same question.
is it because you went ahead and did your work beforehand, or because there's not a paper due?
No,
that was my question.
Because there's not a paper due.
Okay.
See, I was really hoping it was be like, no, I was a good student this week and I did it.
No, paper is due Tuesday this week, so yeah, all out of the way.
All right. Well, good. Glad that you won't have to stress too much after the show. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are a Star Wars comics podcast that broadcasts live right here on youtube.com/utini every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. But if you can't join us live, that is okay. We are available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. So feel free to find us on any of those platforms, and be sure to give us a like on those platforms, because it helps other people be able to find us a little bit easier. And we obviously appreciate the love. We are also a part of the Utini podcast network of nearly a dozen shows and a Discord channel at utini.com/Discord with more than 1,000 members with dozens of channels and topics to discuss. If you like what you see and you want to say thanks, then head over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Utini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Utini podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement activities. And Caleb, we do have a new patron this week that we want to honor.
Absolutely, yes. We want to take some moment and always thank our current and continuing patrons, but we have a brand new one that we want to say a very special thank you to. And our new annual patron is Jared Lee. Thank you for joining us. Even if you joined for one of the other shows, we always want to see you drop by. We want to reach out, thank you specifically, and you'll see your name in the credits. So with that little bit of work out of the way and thanks sent out, let's talk about some news here.
Yeah, we have one little piece of news that we have to discuss this week. Jacob, our favorite Mandalorian ? Is getting his own comic book, isn't he?
Right, yeah. So we're getting a 8-issue episode by episode adaptation of the first season of The Mandalorian. So it's gonna be pretty big. I'm probably gonna pick it up just for the speculative value of Baby Yoda's first appearance in comic books alone.
Oh man, that's a very good point.
Make sure you get that on your pull list. There's probably gonna be some insane variants as well. Yeah. This is written by Rodney Barnes, who I believe is the writer for IG-88, if I remember correctly. And then
sounds familiar, yeah.
Art from Georges Genti, which he's the artist who filled in for Ario on the High Republic. And yeah, we have this great cover by Adi Granov. So yeah, it's gonna be an 8-issue adaptation. It's been a little while since we had an adaptation because Marvel canceled their Rise of Skywalker adaptation, so I think it's Solo was the last movie or TV show comic adaptation we got. So it's been a hot
and was
minute.
was that Marvel or was it IDW? I thought. Why am I thinking IDW was the one who used it?
IDW has also done some adaptations, but
Mhm.
like if you're looking at Marvel, because IDW, I've only like read one of them. It was like just like shot for shot the movie. Like I did A New Hope, and like it was just A New Hope, whereas like the Marvel adaptations often will add a little bit of extra context around it. So, and I think I saw an interview with like CBR or something like that said this was going to be pretty similar, that they might add some new scenes, which would be exciting. But yeah, this is coming out in June, so it's gonna help fill in the time with No High Republic. So
Go
Exactly.
talk to your local comic stores
Yes.
now to
Uh,
get your pull lists and to get those variant covers in.
Yeah, you have
Now-
until probably like late April is when you're gonna wanna. Well, that's when the solicits come in. So you honestly can't even pre-order it yet, unless you know the guy at your store, and you can just tell him to keep an eye out on it. But it won't be in like their systems until like the end of April.
Now, just a quick thought: is this the first time we're seeing the Mandalorian in like a medium outside of his this is the first time we're seeing it in a comic book or a novel or anything
For
like
original
that?
story, yeah, well, it's not original, but you know what I mean. For like a
Yeah.
narrative story, yes, he's obviously had like art of books. I believe, and I don't know, did they have a reference guide for the first? There's been some reference books. I don't remember if there's like specifically like a cross sections or a straight like DK, but there's been a few different things like that. So, but this is
I also feel
narrative
there was
story.
supposed to be like a behind the scenes that was canceled or a
There's a
novelization.
There's a
Yeah.
novelization. I think
Yeah.
that's canceled.
Yep, Adam Christopher was gonna write that. It was canceled, I think, like before season 2 came out. But he's obviously now writing Shadows of the Sith, which comes out in June. I think it's June. It's June or July. But yeah, so. Right.
All right. Justin in our chat just got done, was telling us he just finished the High Republic 15 and Eye of the Storm 2. And coincidentally enough, those are a part of our weekly pull list this week. So let's go ahead and transition right into our weekly pull list. We've got one additional comic from that, Jacob, this week.
Yep.
But we got a pretty good list this week.
Right. Yeah, we have first off, we have Star Wars number 21, Trapped on a Star Destroyer, written by Charles Soule with pencils from Marco Castillo and Ramon Rosanas. The cover is also from Ramon Rosanas, and the colorist is Rochelle Rosenberg with letters from Clayton Cowles. It's the return to the Shara base story, which we haven't touched in, I think like 9 issues. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It was
It's been pre-War of the Bounty Hunters. Yep.
Which I think was like issue 11 or 12 was the last time we talked about her. Then we also have High Republic number 15, Jedi's End, written by Kevin Scott with pencils by Ario Anadito, cover from Phil Noto. Inker is Mark Morales and Victor Olazaba. We have colors from Carlos Lopez and letters from Ariana Meyer. And we also have Eye of the Storm number 2, written by Charles Soule, pencils from Guillermo Sana, cover from Ryan Brown. Colorist is Jim Campbell, and the letterer is Ariana Meyer. So those are some, this is the end of the High Republic as far
Phase 1.
Phase 1, and also High Republic Phase 1 comics. If you don't count, there's like a few things we're still waiting on. Like there is the
Edge of Balance 2.
Edge of Balance 2 is out on digital, but it comes out physically at the end of May. There's also the Insider Short Story Collection, which is it's complicated. That's coming out in September or August or September, and that might have some additional Phase 1 stories. But yeah, it's this is essentially the end of Phase 2 or Phase 1. Wow, for the High Republic. So yeah, it's if you're wondering about reading order, Charles Soule has said multiple times the Eye of the Storm number 2 should be the last thing you read in all of Phase 1. So obviously read High Republic 15 first. Eye of the Storm number 2. I have not personally finished Midnight Horizon yet, and I still read it. And there was like some things I'm like, oh, okay, that obviously happened. There's like one or two things where it's like that obviously happens in Midnight Horizon, but I don't think it's gonna ruin my experience of the book. Like I'm fine having read this first, but obviously if you want to get maximum enjoyment, then you might want to wait a little bit on that if you have not finished the novel.
The only thing I do want to comment is that the variant cover for Eye of the Storm number 2. we do have to draw attention to just another edition. Jacob, I put a link in the chat of just another just perfect question mark rendition of interpretation of Martian Row. There's just there are a lot of
one.
Yes.
Yep.
We're working on pulling it up, but yeah, there's just another there he is again in all of his glory, and just with the hair, moving around in the wind in there,
the
helmet off,
tattoos.
the sleeve tattoos. I mean, come on. I mean, that's the cover that everybody should be getting right there.
I'm not sure if he should be like on a comic book cover or a heavy metal album, or hair metal, something a little more niche appeal there. Maybe definitely a lot of really good things here. We might be getting ahead of ourselves, but I just finished the Fallen Star and then went ahead and then read Eye of the Storm 2, and that flowed really nicely because it picks up immediately from the end of that. So he's right. If you should buy it now, but don't open it until you're ready to literally get the whole epilogue of this entire phase.
Yeah, and obviously we're not going to spoil it today. It'd be a little bit too soon, but I will say there's a lot that I did not expect to happen in this issue. I kind of thought it'd be like, hey, we're wrapping, here's what happened in the Fallen Star. This is the aftermath of this, and that's kind of about it. And then a little bit of backstory, but it paved farther than I expected and gave more hints about the future of the High Republic story. More of that than I expected. So again, must read. If you're not reading all the comic books, which we would love you to do, at least I would say Eye of the Storm, definite must read. Trail of Shadows, definite must read.
Yeah, I was going to say Trail of Shadows, absolutely.
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead and get into what we're loving this week. And we will start with our art of the week from our community. And Caleb, you have I believe this is if it's not a brand new winner, it's something that we haven't seen in quite a bit.
In a long, long time. Yes, Admiral Akbar, 1983 in Discord. He sort of submitted this one. He picked it out for us. So, if you can, we will appreciate if you can point exactly to one you want. But this was a great one. We always love to do it. This is from Darth Vader, the 2015 edition, issue number 6. The artist was from Salvador Larroca, and the colorist was Edgar Delgado. And I distinctly remember this scene. This is where I think Darth Vader finally gets this news about who shot down and blew up the Death Star.
The name of the pilot, yes, who blew up the Death Star.
Skywalker, as you feel the rage emanating out across the glass as it's shattering. Just a really good, solid piece of work. It's probably some of Larroca's best work here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great piece of art. So be sure to you can either tweet at the show at Cosmic Force Show, or if you're in our Discord, make sure you submit your art of the week there so you can be featured on the show. Now let's get into what we're reading. And Caleb, you kind of touched on this a little bit. You've finally caught up, at least with all the adult novels, right? You finished the Fallen Star, and we're gonna go into Midnight Horizon
eventually. I'm going to take a little step back and catch up on some podcasts. They do the there's another podcast out here called The Living Force that does really good roundtables. So I think I might touch on. I might go through those episodes now, so I can help decompress some of the emotions that were from that. Because oh boy, I was getting I don't know if they'll ever touch on this. I doubt it, but it's almost like Seven Samurai vibes of these great warriors being put in a situation and slowly watching them being whittled down and lower and lower. It was good. Probably one of the highlights of the High Republic, which has been a highlight of the Star Wars novels. So it's definitely a capstone that is worthy to crawl yourself for. I will say one thing: don't rush to it. I think I skipped one of the young adult books to get to it. The
Out of the Shadows.
The Test of Courage. The Test of Courage.
Test of Courage, yeah. And they introduced a couple of characters.
Wait. Well, Test of Courage is the middle grade novel, which was the first middle grade novel. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, no, not that one. The second one.
The second YA was Out of the Shadows by Justin Ireland.
Sure?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Out of the Shadows
Into
or Raised
the Dark. Into the Dark was the first
YA.
one.
Yes.
That was it. Into Dark was good, but
yes, that did
Into the Dark, Out of the Shadows,
Yeah, that
Anyway,
did definitely
you should
add some characters that would help you for this book.
exactly. Still good, still very much worth reading, but again, take your time. Don't rush. Especially it was really, really nice being into the comics first and seeing literally the like moment to moment crossovers. Amazing. So like definitely it's something that is so much better when you're reading it together. I think that will be the legacy of this High Republic, is how intertwined everything was and how interconnected it is. You are really getting like less than half the story if you're just getting it from one like series of books, like just reading the adult novels or just reading the YA novels. Like you really have to go across spectrum and get all the like everything they're putting out.
Yeah. I think Midnight Horizon is the epitome of all of that. I just started part 5 of that book. And I think it's had the most crossovers that I've seen. Like there are moments from the comics, moments from previous books. So that's what I love the most. And Caleb, you hit the nail on the head with, you really are only getting you're missing a huge chunk of the stories if you're not reading these comics. And Daniel Jose Older just nails it again with Midnight Horizon, and it's really fun to be able to. They're I don't want to say they're the throwaway lines, but they're not. There's no attention drawn to it. It's a comment it's a long scene setting, and you're in the mind of a character, and they're talking about a scene or a memory, and that's like, oh, that is High Republic Adventures issue number 6. Like I remember that.
Exactly.
And it's like, really, really cool.
It's like, in episode 2 when Obi-Wan and Anakin are talking about their previous adventures. You've seen those adventures now in the comics. It's impressive. You should definitely, like, in case you haven't in case for some reason, listener, you're not in the High Republic, you should be. If the good news is we also have a couple of resources here at utini.com. So this is another shameless plug. Go to utini.com/
just go to utini.com. You can't see it because of the border. There's a High Republic button up here in the top right corner, and it'll take you to the main page, and then you can, if you're new to it, you can go to the Getting Started guide. Eric put a lot of work into writing this up, and it can be, very daunting. There's a lot of stuff here, but you don't have to read it all. As much as we love reading it all, and really appreciate getting that whole story all together. You don't have to. That's okay. It's perfectly fine. Enjoy Star Wars how you want to. But it is a little overwhelming, I'll say that. Luckily, there's no High Republic stuff coming out over the summer, so that gives you some time to catch up if that's what you're feeling. Also, if you're trying to find a little bit more condensed, cut down, or like tailored way to consume this, like you can just DM me on Discord or whatever, or Twitter. Like I've read it. Well, I haven't finished Midnight Horizon, but other than that, I've like literally read it all, like every single thing that they've released. And so I'm always happy to help people get started in the High Republic if they're a little hesitant to jump in.
Yeah, it's been great. The only thing I haven't read is A Test of Courage. But I'm like I said, I've got maybe 100 pages or so left, less than 100 pages left of Midnight Horizon. It's awesome. It's great. It's and to see these authors really have their stuff together and really be as cohesive as they are, and just be as tight knit. Like they were at like Disney within the past like month, and they're just like, I just love to just hang out with them. They just look like they're having an awesome time just being Star Wars fans at Disney. So they were really passionate about their content. We thank them for all of their hard work and all of their creativity. Them, the creatives behind the comics, the editors, everybody that's been involved with the High Republic. We as Star Wars fans thank you for all of your work, because it has been an outstanding experience so far, and we can't wait for what continues to come next. But all right, let's go ahead and take a short break, and then we're going to get into our main topic tonight, where we're talking about major moments from minor characters. We'll be right back.
It's the best back cover since The Star Wars Episode 1 hardcover novelization, the one with young Anakin, because on the back, just to remind y'all, is a full headshot of Watto.
It's so big.
I think I brought this up on one of the earliest episodes of the Living
my
Force
God, yeah.
ever, and I thought I'd bring it back.
Oh my God, yeah.
Series and all of Legends. What do you guys think? Could it be the X-Wing series? Might just be the most romance intensive series ever. And we're not just talking about the scene where Corran Horn describes his love affair with an otter. I mean, a Salonian that he hooked up with her and then he broke out in chives.
Yeah, not chives.
In
Not
chives.
chives.
What's it called? The bumps?
Hives, dude. Hives.
Chives
so
go under
close.
potato.
I'm hearing you say the same thing.
Chives,
What
what
is-
you put on the under potato. No C. Hives.
Hives.
Not chives.
What'd I say?
Chives.
It's not a very common story to approach. Yeah, again, drawing the complex family tree of Django to clone identical son to clone all identical millions of sons, but they're a generation older. So then the son is kind of all Django's equal, but then Boba is a generation younger, but then that clone's son is Boba's age, but then is Boba his dad or his nephew or his uncle or his cousin? It's like
All right, we are back, and tonight we are talking major moments from minor characters. The major characters in these books, the Luke Skywalkers, the Vaders, the Afras, they get plenty of recognition. We wanted to take a little bit of time and really focus on the minor characters, the characters that aren't the feature of the books. They're maybe, featured for a panel or two. Maybe they have their tiny moment to shine. And whatever that little moment is, they really just nail it in those moments. But interesting discussion happened earlier today that was completely impromptu when we were kind of submitting our selections to Jacob so we can pull some art. And that is, what exactly is a minor character? Caleb, I'm going to lead with you because we'll get, without naming who it is that you chose. It was your submission that had this question get raised. And so I kind of want to get what your interpretation is of what a minor character is.
Yes. And when we first picked this topic and said, okay, go out and pick your characters, we didn't have this conversation, which I think is good because we can now have it at this current point. In my mind, when I thought minor character, I thought of a character who hasn't had a series or a comic series named after them. I felt like that was a pretty good way to
That's a very broad. That's a very broad.
That's a very broad because I won broad. Now, ironically, I only have 2 people on my list. I probably could have dug a little bit more. Both of you have more than that, but one of my characters I definitely can see the pushback for it, but I still stand by him. The first one I'm going to talk about, which we'll get to, I think that is the perfect example of a minor character here. So, as I said, I think it's a little loosey-goosey, but I think in my mind is a character who hasn't been a star of their own comic series yet.
Okay.
So maybe they could have a one-shot sort of thing, but definitely not their own series.
So when I was originally, when we originally thought of this topic, I was thinking not even sidekicks, like 000. In your interpretation, 000 would be a minor character.
Yes.
And in my original thought process, I was like, no, that's a a B character. I want to go into the C's and the D characters. And then it got to be this morning, and I hadn't really gotten my list together yet, and I kind of forgot. I wanted to choose. This is not one of my characters. I wanted to choose one of the Imperial handlers for Vader. In which I couldn't remember which series I was wanting to refer to, and I couldn't remember the character's name. And I was like, well, if this is my first character and I can't even remember this, then this is just going to go nowhere fast. So I loosened my definition up a little bit as well. And I definitely, I guess you could say my definition is characters you'd find in the B plot of if this was a TV show, they'd be at most in the B plot of the storylines. They might be featured with the A plot characters, but if they're the focus of this of the storyline, it's the B plot. It might be the C plot, but that's kind of my interpretation of this of this discussion.
Your Chief O'Briens from The Next Generation.
Sure. Yeah, okay. I mean, if you want to go into that,
Fandom.
Fandom, which shall not be named here. Sure, absolutely. Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think I like ever put like a like a bright line rule on it. I like there were a few things I considered, like obviously, it can't be like a major, like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, Boba Fett, obviously off limits. I had like the internal conversation with myself of like, are we looking for minor characters to the saga or minor characters to the comics? Because like, if I ask someone who just watches the movies, hey, what do you think about Dr. Aphra? They probably don't have an opinion. But if I ask literally anyone who's read a Star Wars comic book in the past 8 years or 7 years now, they all have opinions on Dr. Aphra.
That's a very good
one
point.
of the biggest comic characters in Star Wars. So it very much depends on how you approach this. I try to just play it safe. So yeah, like, some of my characters, you could argue, well, I don't think you could argue any of them are even B tier characters. Some of them are C to D tier characters. Some of them have appeared in live. Actually, 2 out of 3 have appeared in live action. But trust me, the amount of not live action, but live action and animated television. Let's say that. But neither of them have any like significant amount of screen time. So it was just kind of I went off vibes, if we're being honest. So.
And there was one character, we said this at the end of last week's show, but there was one character that we did say was off limits to this, because I think we all would have put them on our list, because I think that they really are the perfect example of what we're talking about. And Caleb, since this comes from your favorite book, I'm going to give you the honors of giving a very quick rundown as to who we're talking about and what makes him such an awesome character.
The character, of course, is Lobot. For those who don't remember, he's the Lando's cyborg companion from Episode 5, and kind of co-starred in his Lando shot, the miniseries, and also is now a semi-starring role, a very important role in the 2020 series. This is the perfect platonic ideal of a character that you saw in Star Wars in the movie, in the kind of a background character, but now through the power of telling stories in the universe in the past and in the future, we get a much deeper understanding of the character. We get to add context as to why they're there. And that's why we're kind of doing this. Like, Lobot is suddenly now a human being, and we get to see his transition into his full cyborg nature. So that's why that's kind of why we're doing this. Lobot is the exact person that we want to like point to. Are we all going to pick Lobot tier, sort of in this low tier, doing high tier stuff? No, this is going to be too complicated, too many tiers. But this isn't wedding cake time. This is Star Wars time.
All right. Well, Caleb, you are the master of the show notes, and so who did you choose first? I'm asking this for our audience because I obviously know, but who did you choose first for this week to decide their or show their characters?
All right, I am going to give Jacob 2 more seconds to get up there. Guess we're going a little out. Oh yes, this is, I think, another great ideal. This is Benthic, who is the Saw Gerrera's kind of right-hand man from Rogue One. He speaks alien, probably like alienese, his own native language, so everything is subtitled in the movie. He has all of like 2 lines, and we don't even know if he survives the evacuation of Jeddah. But we see him show back up in the comics, in the 2015 comics, the Ashes of Jeddah sub-story, specifically issue 40. I think this is what I'm looking forward to when I was thinking of like your platonic ideal of a B character, like someone that you can point to, oh yeah, he was in the movies, and then but seeing him essentially take on a starring role, like seeing him step up into Saw Gerrera's footsteps. being like the leader of his own partisan rebel group, and just kind of seemed like him being like a total hard ass, essentially, like absolutely executing prisoners, not taking prisoners, blowing up any sort of minorly imperial affiliated project. Like seeing this character come back into comics was really exciting, and then seeing him given time to shine and be a real character, that's what I was looking forward to.
The partisans are they're a lot more extreme, obviously, than the main vein of the Rebel Alliance. They a lot of similar goals, but some of us, or well, not some of us, some of the rebels are willing to blow up planets for to meet the ends, but some aren't. So Benthic is quite the interesting character, and he really challenges like Luke's ideal, like pure blue milk Luke. He's a lot of his beliefs are pushed pretty far in this arc. So yeah, he's a pretty cool character here.
Exactly. So that was my pick. If you don't mind, maybe we should, before I get to my other pick, how about Tyler, how about you take a couple of options here? I can't usually hog the first ones here, so I think I'll stay back here and let you hammer out a couple, okay?
Okay, all right. Well, my first one is somebody that we talked about this character when we were talking about the High Republic, and that's going to be Skier. And mainly in the context of the show, what his big moment is, and it's his relationship with the Force, because one, I found it very interesting to see the duality of a naturally aggressive Trandoshan try to assimilate himself on first glance successfully into the naturally passive lifestyle of a Jedi. And I think that dichotomy and that internal strife is an extremely interesting topic, and that's what really drew me to him. And then to throw all the icing on that cake, having him lose his ability to use or touch the Force or whatever it is going on with him, again, I think is another fascinating story. And so he is definitely not an A plot character. I mean, he's a very B plot character.
He's I'd say like a B plus character.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the closest
on the issue, but I'd say he's A plot for the comics itself.
Yeah, it depends on, again, it's like back to what I was saying earlier, it depends on how you approach this. If you're a High Republic book fan, yeah, he's like a B or C. He's arguably maybe a C character. But if you're a High Republic comic fan, yeah, he's like B plus to A.
And as we get far closer to issue 15, I think he starts to fade a little bit more into the background, at least from my perspective. So that was kind of he's definitely much more featured in issue 1 than he is in issue 14 and 15. But that's why I chose him, because I think that there are some very interesting stories that I think that we could I would love to get an internal monologue as to what is going on with his ability to touch the Force, and I really hope we get to see that. I guess in phase 3. So that is my first character. My second character, this guy, I mean, he has become he is my Afra in the sense of my basically throwaway character in Rise of Skywalker has become one of my favorite characters in comics because he is everywhere. And what I wrote down was the many allies of Ochi of Bistun, because we get introduced to him as he's on Team Palpatine. He's there to
hunt Vader,
kind of sort of keep Vader in line / take him out, but he realizes what we all know is that that's never going to happen. So then he goes and joins Team Vader, and he's is able to follow Vader and does whatever he demands. And then more recently, he's now apparently has an affiliation with Crimson Dawn. So to have a character who, like I said, did he even have two? Was his name even mentioned twice in Rise of Skywalker? I mean, we all know it was his ship that they were after, but outside of just saying the ship belonged to, a bounty hunter named Ochi of Bestoon, I don't think that he was ever mentioned prior to his inclusion in Vader.
No, not at all.
So
yeah, that's a good choice of someone I'd like. Kind of like my pick of someone who showed up very minorly in the movies, but now we're expanding out onto
extremely minorly in the movies.
Absolutely.
So yeah, he's like I said, I am very excited to see what he does because he's a really cool character, and he's out for himself. As Justin says in our chat, the true definition of a wild card playing all the sides. Yeah, that's what he's in it for himself, and I can't wait to see what he does. My next two are I think are more in line with the C and tier characters. And this one I chose Dr. Silo. I'm pronouncing this Silo. The failed usurper, but I'm kind of including his whole ratoon of characters that battled Vader. I thought they were all
gallery of
his little team of misfits that were put together to really go against Vader. And I thought it was a very, again, somebody like Vader who is all powerful and can just literally snap a guy's neck, and without barely lifting a finger, pun intended. For him to have the sort of altercations with Vader, it was a lot of fun. It was a different side of Vader we got to see Vader in a different light. And so I thought that he being the leader of this entertaining band of characters, it was really awesome. And that whole the end of his arc was extremely fun for me. And my last character, I cannot talk about minor characters without, I think I said this in like episode 2 of the Cosmic Force, that if somebody were to say what is the perfect comic interpretation of the Utini community, it is Jocasta Nu, where I believe it's the last splash page of one of the Vaders where it's like, don't you dare touch my books or something like that.
Yes.
That I from that moment on, I just like, yes, Jocasta Nu is an awesome character. And she has an amazing arc in Vader. And we've said what can we say about Jocasta Nu that we haven't already said a handful of times? She has a lightsaber gun. So I mean, she's awesome. And for this little librarian character in Attack of the Clones to turn into to have such an amazing arc in comics, that is awesome. So those are my picks. Definitely from highest tier to lowest tier towards the end. But yeah, those characters are a lot of fun.
Right. Before we move on from your picks, totally, I don't, I want to make sure we don't skip over the glorious art that was Dr. Silo. Because I don't know if you noticed this, it's a very clear homage to the naked Palpatine of Dark Empire.
Yes, all the clones.
He's like if you haven't read the comic, it's from Vader 2015. He instead of like essence transferring, he uses like science and stuff to make sure when his body dies, he can pass himself on to clones of himself. And when confronting Vader, he realizes he's in trouble and releases all of his backup clone bodies at the same time, who are all of course naked and having like flamethrowers and guns and stuff like that to take on Vader. So we couldn't let that one go without mentioning it.
That's a major moment there of the whole.
It really is.
Naked man rush.
All right, Caleb, do we want to get to your controversial topic, or do we want to let Jacob go and
I'll go ahead
explain
and take
his?
Should I go ahead and take mine, Jacob?
Let's do it.
Up to you. All right. So this was the one that I think sparked this controversy. And this character, I had to catch myself because when I was explaining my rules, I almost said, they couldn't have started their own comic series or their own book. But the problem is they did have their own book, and this is Grand Moff Tarkin. Yeah. Yes, Grand Moff Tarkin, Peter Cushing
definitely
himself.
A loose interpretation of the term minor character, but continue.
Yeah, in the comics, definitely, and in the extended universe, he's definitely played out a lot. And his moment is specifically in Dark Lord of Sith, the 2017 run, there's like a one-off issue 18, where Vader approaches Tarkin because Tarkin owes him a favor and says, "Here's my favor, Tarkin. I know you're a big game hunter, so I want you to gather as many people as you can, pick a planet, and try to hunt me as best you can." And like, it's a really fun, like, we get a deep dive into Tarkin's like mindset of how he's like trying to stop this unstoppable force. And in the end, he actually kind of manages to get a leg up on Vader and get him cornered. There's a really great scene there at the end, and if you haven't watched it, you should definitely read this issue. It's, even if you just get the one issue, it's amazing. But it really adds a lot of context to this character, and you get to see and I think it adds more to when you reread episode 4 or rewatch episode 4 of seeing how Vader and Tarkin interact. Tarkin is the sort of person who will tell Vader to stop, and Vader still stops. And, given how much we've seen of Vader and how well he plays with authority, that might not mix with what we have in mind, but this kind of re-hones that edge and makes you realize, okay, Vader definitely has a lot of respect for Tarkin in a mental and martial sense.
Yeah, it's definitely a great arc in the comics, and it's definitely, and I definitely understand why you chose this. And if this show was airing in I guess anytime before the Clone Wars, I would probably say I'd probably be like, oh yeah, awesome choice. But if Skier is a B character, borderline B plus.
Tarkin's an S character.
Yeah, he's like a B plus character now.
Yeah, like Tarkin is definitely. I think I'm pushing the definition here a lot.
It's like interesting, Tyler. It's interesting that you think that like Clone Wars was the tipping point. Like I still feel that like even today, more he gets far more notoriety from A New Hope itself than a couple appearances in Clone Wars. But
you see in
Rogue One.
Yeah.
In A New Hope, he is. Well, no, I get. Yeah,
he's like
I was gonna say in A New Hope, he is a minor character, but no, he's
like
he's arguably the main bad guy. Yeah,
he got like as high billing as Alec Guinness. You know?
I mean, at that point, well, I mean, he's a very famous actor. Yeah, and he at that point there was no Emperor in this in the picture. I mean,
you're right.
It was just Vader and it was so Caleb couldn't say he didn't have his own book because he does have one.
He does. I did say that. Yeah.
Also, I mean, you did carve out a caveat that maybe one shots were okay because he did get an Age of Republic book as well.
He did get that too. Yes. I'm aware.
That is art right there.
Not Republic, Age of Rebellion. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, that is art right there. Oh, yes, that is buff Tarkin.
buff murder fantasy Tarkin.
Yes.
But yeah, it was funny because the reason
Imperial Psycho, Tarkin.
The reason that we got on this conversation on if he was a minor character is just a funny moment where I was just like Tyler sitting today trying to think of who I wanted to talk about. And I was thinking to myself, I'm do you think General Tag from A New Hope is too mainstream, or is that is that a little, is that obscure enough? And then I look up and I see Caleb has Tarkin on it. Yes, Tag would be okay. I did not choose him, but yeah.
Yes, so Tarkin was my second pick. Controversial to say the least, but I think again, this is what I'm going for, is a character who had a very limited appearance in the movies, but had a great impact in these comics as we see a different side of them. So
hey, this is the epitome of the UTini community right here. Everybody has their own opinions. We might not all agree, but we're all here to share them and think about them positively. So if you think that Tarkin is a minor character, then you are able to have that opinion, and we're going to talk about it tonight.
Right. All right.
So all right, Jacob.
That was me. Yeah.
Yes.
My first one is I don't know. I really don't know how to rank these as far as obscurity goes. So we're just gonna go into it because the first one is Ren. So he's definitely gotten more of a spotlight as of late. I will argue that he's still pretty obscure, or still pretty minor until his issue of Crimson Reign comes out in 1 month or 2 months now. So I think it's issue 4, so we still got like a month. But yes, so Ren from Rise of Kylo Ren, and also of course the Halloween Lego special is a very very cool character. He's the guy that helps tempt Ben Solo over to the dark side. I think it's a very interesting, because obviously this came out after The Force Awakens, and after Last Jedi, I believe. Yeah, after Last Jedi.
Yes.
So like, we already kind of have some idea of what the Knights of Ren are at that point, but this comic book gave a backstory to them. It gave a charismatic leader that is kind of the opposite of what you'd expect to lead this group of Force users. I think he's just a very cool character. He has some great moments in the comic book, including, of course, fighting Kylo. I chose his interaction with Kylo and Luke from when when Ben was younger. I thought it was a very cool moment where he's like he's fighting the legend Luke Skywalker, and he has the guy is crazy, so he has a dead man switch on his lightsaber that would like blow everything up if Luke tried to take it away. And it's just a very interesting moment, especially when he lifts off the mask, because you see him earlier in the series completely like scarified, like he looks like a monster, and then you take it off, it's like, oh, he's hot. Like, okay, it's the Martian Row effect. Let's be real. It's like, oh, well,
yeah.
all right.
Well,
that's
I
not
guess
what
Ben Solo, Kylo Ren also did that a bit too.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's not what we expected. It's a lot different than 83 when Vader takes off his mask and he's like scarred. And it's like now in Star Wars is
Grimace.
now in Star Wars it's like, oh, it's just an attractive dude. All right, cool.
What's the saying? Ren walked so Martian Row could run.
I did not know that
dash.
Let's
With that dashing. Is that the phrase that earlier predecessors? It is now that he was Martian Row before Martian Row was
the
hot.
blueprint. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I'm glad you chose him.
White print to the gray print, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm glad you chose him, because he was somebody that I was considering putting in my list as well. So I'm very glad that he was mentioned on this episode.
Totally. Yeah. Next, of course, I couldn't go an episode of the Cosmic Force without talking about Bausch. The minorest of characters who technically was not even in a movie, although his armor was. Alyssa Wong shouts out, did this one shot for War of the Bounty Hunters, still my favorite comic book of all of last year. Him and his crew are amazing as they try and take on an assassination mission to take down the board of the tag company. Just a very cool, honestly, the mission is the least interesting part of this issue for me. I mean, it's cool, but the real heart of the issue is the emotional storytelling. But then also honorable mention to Domina Tag stabbing someone in the chest with a proto blade. That was also pretty hype.
Yes. Now, two things. This is also a relation to the Tag family of General Tag, the person you were trying to mention. And two, since we were talking about masked characters on your last pick, is Bausch hot underneath the helmet?
I don't know if we will ever find that out. Even if I get my dream that the Bausch Uba 4 Ubi's people story gets told, I still think they're gonna Master Chief it and never show what he looks like.
We can only hope.
Well, Boba Fett went without a face for 15 years, 20 years?
Was it 80 to 2002? So
yeah,
22 years.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe Bausch will get a face reveal in the next 20 years.
Yeah, we gotta wait for the I don't know, prequels part 2. We're just doing it. We're doing them again, but
the book of Boba Fett, Bausch edition.
Yeah, there we go.
The prequel.
But yes, pick this up. It's great. I loved it. Shouts out Bausch. So my last pick, Emma unfortunately could not join us tonight, so this was partially in honor of her. I have to bring in the Bausch representation as much as I can. Emma, of course, would have picked something from Mutiny at Mon Cala, I'm guessing, if she was here. So I did King Lee Char from Clone Wars. He plays a very interesting role. When I caught back up with when I read all of the Marvel stuff in last summer, I read it in release order, which was a very interesting experience, because if you go back and read these comic books, this is from Vader 2017. Burning Seas. If you read them, like if you just kind of like read them in chronological or whatever order you might find that's not release order, you were probably not getting what was a very cool experience of this released at the same time as Mutiny at Mon Cala. So they were both leading up to King Lee Char, like the whole time in Vader's arc, he's trying to get Lee Char and like just hunt him down and like suppress the Mon Calan resistance, where at Mutiny Mon Cala, the rebel heroes were trying to go track him down to spark up new resistance from the Mon Calamari. So it's a very interesting thing where like both these arcs are driving towards a like central issue, and they meet at the end from two different parts of the timeline. So if you didn't read those, like if you didn't read it when they came out that way, you miss out on what's a very cool experience. Like here we have Lee Char. This is like very, very early days of the Empire, and the Empire decides to make a example of the Mon Calamaris and just like absolutely just bombards the Tarkin's actually doing this. It just bombards the crap out of their planet and take Lee Char as a political prisoner. And then again you see the aftermath of this, like what 20 some odd years later in the timeline, where he's been a imperial prisoner for this entire time, and he's on life support, but in his dying breath gives inspiration to his people to rise up. Yeah, like without Lee Char, you don't have, in the story you don't have the rebel fleet that we see in the later movies. So
exactly. You don't have Admiral Akbar, and you don't have the people submitting Discord images.
Yes, no, we don't. Like obviously, let's be real. He was not his story in Clone Wars was one of the least liked of that series. But I think he plays a very pivotal role, very important role in this comic book, and I'm glad it happened.
Absolutely. I still can't get over the fact that his name is just Charlie backwards.
Yeah, he had a very very heroic moment at the end of this in this panel right here, and I thought that it's a very good picks being able to honor Emma with this pick of King Lee Char, because he has a very 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 big moment with his speech there. So all right. Any other honorable mentions? Like I said at the top of the show, I had wanted to, I just couldn't remember what name it was, and I didn't have time to go look for it. Any one of Vader's handlers during his time when he is kind of on, in the doghouse with the Emperor. I think those are great characters. I considered putting Sarah and Tarek in, but I wasn't sure if they were minor characters. I mean, I say that ironically, seeing as I chose Skier.
I think they're more minor than Skier, probably.
Yeah, they're definitely a supporting cast, I would say. Like, you might have been able to get away with, like, Dr. Uttersound from Trail of Shadows. I think he'd be a minor character.
I would agree.
Okay.
Especially from a comics perspective, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, even in a bookstore perspective, it's not like he does terrible much. So I think that would have been a kind of a shoe-in.
I was thinking, because I really wanted to have a High Republic pick, but I just didn't end up coming up with one. Because like Quart's my favorite. I think he's a little bit too. I think he's borderline, but probably a little bit too much. He's like.
He was minor in the first volume.
I was surprised we didn't have a Quart appearance.
Like, I would say at best he's like the number 4 most important character. Like he definitely is not more important than Lula or Zine, and I don't think he's more important, or at least like you wouldn't rank him above
Crix.
Crix, but who's the other Padawan friend?
Zanahar? No. I'm blanking on it.
I know. I see him.
Well,
but
here's the thing.
I always want to call him Cantam, but that's
Farzala?
Farzala. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I think Quart has definitely, minor spoilers if you haven't read High Republic Adventures, which you should. Quart has definitely is now more
elevated.
important. He's now elevated, so he's more important than Farzala.
I don't know. I think it's pretty close. But and then also the other one I was thinking about throwing in, but I couldn't find a good enough moment to highlight them. They're a minor character in the High Republic, but they've had basically cameos in the comics, so there's no major moment for them. That's of course Oberlin. God love him.
Yeah.
Do
the archivist.
I'm also kind of surprised none of us chose Buckets of Blood as to have a major moment from Trail of Shadows.
Well, that is a very major moment, but I also strongly considered just throwing him in and just having him bake treats for his moment. His major moment is baking the treats.
That too. Yes,
that's another good one. So wow.
There are a lot of additional honorable mentions. So if you have an honorable mention, tweet the show at Cosmic Force Show, or go into the Discord and let us know what some of your honorable mentions are. Because there are a lot of and I think that's the beauty of comics, is you can have a lot more characters that can be featured and have their one moment, their Buckets of Blood moment, where they're, you know, stripping down for science before storming off to defend everybody. So all right, if we don't have any additional
let's quickly shout out one from the chat. I don't know if this is the exact one he would have chosen, but Justin did give props to Commander Carbon from the same like Silo arc, who is of course our General Grievous / Admiral Akbar mashup character who has like purple lightsabers. It's insane. And he has like, doesn't he die by getting like a ship crushed on top of him?
Yes, like
yes, he does.
After it rams him with a ship. Yes.
Oh yeah. It's what happened to Archangel #1 is flown into him. Yep. Okay. Good times.
And obviously, we're only talking about canon, because if we went into Legends, hell, we could just do the 77 run, and we could fill 4 different episodes about minor characters.
Let's be real. Most of our episodes are canon specific because that's what's coming out right now. It's what we know best.
Yes.
And if you open up the floodgates to Legends, things just get way too crazy, way too fast. That's why we have to bring in like our spiritual guide, Jared or Freddie, to help us navigate that.
I said, see last episode for how crazy it got on Legends. Now, speaking of last episode, next episode, I think we've teased it out a little bit. Next episode is going to be a very special one. We're going to be doing a roundtable for The Rise of Kylo Ren. It's something that's now been on our foundational 5 for this entire run of this series. But we've done roundtables on literally every other one of those novels, or at least some part of that series.
Well,
but
we
have
done
2016.
We've done so Dark Empire is one of them, and although we have not done a roundtable on that, Legends Look Back most assuredly has. Rise of Kylo Ren.
We did Dark Lord of the Sith,
but we didn't do Sky. I think we talked about it not in a roundtable format, and we haven't done Skywalker Strikes in a roundtable.
Let's be real. Anyway, this is the best one on the remaining list for us to do a roundtable on.
Absolutely. It is a contained story, so we don't have to leave on cliffhangers. So go out, read it. It's a really good story. It really ties in the sequel trilogy very well. Plus, it has a hot guy taking off his mask and revealing that he's attractive. Always, it's a trope now in Star Wars, just like lightsabers. And I have a bad feeling about this. It's here. So that'll be next week. So get a chance to read it. We actually you can use the link in our website to Amazon in our YouTube description to.
It's not in it right now, but it's not in the description now. But you can find just
you can click one of those links and then find your web, navigate yourself to it.
Yeah.
But needless to say, pick it up. It's a great read. We'll be talking about it in depth next week, where all 4 of us will be here, and that's going to be that week. Also, if you're not speaking of Legends, we try to summon them, but since they haven't appeared, we'll point you in their direction. Tomorrow, 9:00, Legends Look Back, our sister podcast, is discussing, and this is a direct quote, the dopest ships in Legends. That is exactly what it says. So they're going to be talking about their favorite starships that were Legend specific. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to be doing that one. And then if you still love roundtables, Monday, the Living Force is going to be doing their Midnight Horizon roundtable. So tune in for that. And next week for our roundtable, and we will keep pumping out all this information, all these podcasts here. So stay tuned.
All right. But for tonight, that is going to do it for this week's episode of The Cosmic Force. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show right here on YouTube, where you can hear us live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We also encourage you to subscribe to our audio version on whatever podcast platform you listen to. You can also follow us on Twitter and tweet at the show at Cosmic Force Show to stay informed about Star Wars comics happenings. Excuse me. Or follow the host individually. I'm at Ty Rags. Emma is at Irma Jedi 26. Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch. For reviews, articles, and news for the rest of the expanded universe, be sure to visit utini.com. We also encourage you to join our Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/discord, and you can help support the show by heading to patreon.com/utini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thank you to OK Endar, Brian Dooley, Patrick Ortiz, Carl Sander, and Earl Q on our Jedi High Council, as well as Matt Billington, Elizabeth Cloutier, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their continued amazing support. Thank you again to Caleb and Jacob for hosting with me tonight. Thank you for all of you who joined us live in the chat. And thank you to our listeners wherever and whenever you are listening to us. We truly appreciate your support. Until next week, we will see everybody next week. But until then, may the Force be with you.